Hello, everyone. It is Tuesday, May 11th, 2021. And today, not as always, but as often, it is Che Day, and I'm here with political strategist and Norse god of literary knowledge and movie trivia, Chaitanya Kamandori, and I, of course, am Shia D-list YouTuber. Hey, Che, you were just on the beat with Ari Melber. How was your Che Day
Correct.
this week?
It was good. We talked about why voters view Biden as being more moderate than Obama, even though Biden has clearly, I would argue, a much more liberal record than
Yeah,
even Obama. I mean, this is the largest spending program, government spending program, since the New Deal and the Great Society. It is entirely aimed at working class Americans. There's no question about the fact that he's clearly on the political left economically. But what matters, I think, in terms of your label, liberal, conservative, moderate, is entirely culture. So I think if Biden were to come out in favor of banning Dr. Seuss or something, then he would be viewed as liberal in our
yeah,
culture.
yeah,
But
yeah.
having $6 trillion of spending on human infrastructure, universal daycare, that sort of thing is not viewed does not make you viewed as liberal.
Right. The,
Uh,
the political needle has certainly shifted in a very absurd manner uh, over the past 2 decades. Before we even get to that, how do we feel about Ari Melber comparing Mitch McConnell to Kareem Abdul Jabbar, to Renaissance man Kareem Abdul Jabbar?
you know what? Yeah, it was kind of interesting. I mean, so Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is now a beat regular. He's been on the beat several times, so I feel like they needed to bring in Kareem into the discussion. I did understand the concept where you have the sky hook, and you keep
Right.
using it over again. But the problem was, I think, with that analogy, if there's a problem with it, is that the sky hook I don't think ever missed. I think it always succeeded.
Right.
I try to remember if there was any player. Well, Walton used to give Kareem fits in the '70s,
Hmm.
because of his defense. But I think that was entirely because he was so big, he was able to sort of box Kareem out. But yeah, but I think the skyhook. I mean, Kareem was skyhooking all the way to
Yeah, the
the
skyhook
late.
was strong pretty much till the end of Kareem's career. And then, of course, unlike Mitch McConnell, Kareem trained with Bruce Lee in martial arts. He is a
Right.
famed and acclaimed writer of Sherlock Holmes mysteries.
Yeah, he is.
He's
He's
an
right. Sherlock Holmes
actor
mystery.
and comedian.
Yeah, a star of Airplane.
Yes.
Uh, you know, um, but I think that the one time also I know historically the skyhook failed Kareem, and then he was able to come back from it. Was in the '85 finals during the Memorial Day Massacre. It's a very famous basketball game where the Celtics beat the Lakers by like 30 points. There's a great ESPN documentary about it. If
Right.
you ESPN Classic will sometimes run the game, even though it was like a 30-point victory, because literally you'll never see a team play as well as those Celtics played in that game against the Lakers in '85.
Right.
Uh,
I think
um,
last year during lockdown, they probably replayed that game
yeah, I
every
mean, yeah.
month.
I mean, people actually watch this game even though it's a blowout because literally no team has ever played as well as this team played in that game. And it was the old Boston Garden, and I remember the footage is great because everybody's sweating because there's no air conditioning, and
Right.
Jack Nicholson is sitting there all the way up in the rafters, and they're catching him on camera because he was in New England at the time. He's a huge Lakers fan, filming the movie Witches of Eastwick.
Yes.
Um,
A personal
so
favorite of mine, but
yes, directed by was it Bruce Beresford, I believe, directed that.
perhaps,
Um,
perhaps.
I think Driving Miss Daisy, director Bruce Beresford. Oh no, maybe you know what it was? It wasn't Bruce Beresford. It was George Miller, the Mad Max Fury
Yes.
Road
Yes,
director.
that's correct. That's correct.
Correct. That was actually that's what I was thinking about who it was. I knew it was an Australian filmmaker, but it was George Miller who had completed the Mad Max trilogy with Mel Gibson. I believe this was his first movie after Beyond Thunderdome that he
Is it really?
directed,
Oh,
was Witches
interesting.
of Eastwick, and then he went and did kids movies. He did Babe,
That's
Babe Pig
right.
in the City, Happy Feet, and then
See,
he decided.
there is a better analogy between Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and director George Miller in terms of versatility
Right.
of career and life.
So after the Memorial Day Massacre, I mean, basically the media was burying Kareem. He was an old man. He's past his prime. I mean, and there's a story that Kareem had to sit there for like 2 days in the hotel in Boston, and just read all the paper clippings about him, and then he just came back with a fury and took over the series and won. But that was definitely the case. Yes, but I
Yes.
understand.
Which brings us back to, will Mitch McConnell be able to use his own personal skyhook with any effectiveness this time?
No, he really needs. He basically needs like an assist. He needs a turnover, a fumble, an error
Well, he
by
needs to
Biden.
pull a Jordan, right? Where Jordan develops the fadeaway jumper career.
Yeah, I don't even think he has. I don't think he's got that versatility or ability.
No,
I don't
he
think
probably doesn't have that in his.
he needs something else. Like he would need, for example, like the economy to go bad. He would need the vaccine rollout to be less impressive. I mean, the real opposition to Biden in his first 100 days has not been Mitch McConnell and Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin's been the much more important figure of opposition to Biden than Mitch
In
McConnell.
terms of opposition from within his own party, like
Correct. Yeah, I mean, also an ability
Systema.
to stop things, and also, I mean, Manchin has been making an argument against some of what Biden has done, calling it too big, too excessive, etc. I mean, there's no real argument. I mean, literally, Biden gave that speech, outlining the infrastructure plan, and within 2 days, Fox was spending a whole day on Snow White, which they got from basically one sentence in a San Francisco gate review of the ride, and they made that an entire day of Fox. They're just, because they need these cultural hot button issues to get people excited, to get them riled up. And Trump really knew that. I mean, he called that horse in the Kentucky Derby a junkie.
Right,
He was,
on his new daily blog.
right, in his new daily blog. And the
Donald
only
J.
reason
Trump.
I knew about it was ESPN SportsCenter talked about it, that Trump did this. The major newspapers news networks did not cover this story. It was only, yeah, it was only ESPN.
Have you looked at his blog?
I have, yeah. It's a Twitter role, but he can't tweet,
Right.
so he's just doing it on this blog.
Right, they're very short. If anyone is worried that Donald Trump is going to go into lengthy analysis on his blog and it might be unreadable, it's pretty much just tweets in blog form.
Yeah, that's the way he thinks. He clearly thinks in tweets that he's comfortable with that. He understood how to move the media narrative on that. So for example, like in the old days when he was on Twitter, if he had called that Kentucky Derby horse a junkie, it would have been just the biggest story in the country.
Oh, sure. Horse junkie would have been trending for at least half the day.
Yeah, and this time when he did it, it was the sports people who kind of covered it, and they did it because they were trying to infuse some interest into sports.
Right.
That was and into the Preakness. Actually, I think it was much more about, because I think ABC has the right to the Preakness, and they were trying to hype this race up, and so they were trying to infuse interest in that into the Preakness. So that was really why that even got picked up, was entirely because of ESPN.
You can really tell that Trump hasn't quite realized he's making a blog, because every single blog post on his new blog is entitled simply Donald J. Trump. There are no entry titles. Each one is just called Donald J. Trump, and then be his tweet if he was still allowed on Twitter.
Yeah, and he's not really very good at it. He's not a particularly good he's not particularly good politician. One of the things I've noticed, even when Trump was president, was that AOC was much better than him on Twitter and on Instagram. She was much more capable and had much greater mastery of the medium, and it really kind of surpassed him in many ways on that. He was president, so he still had that part to play.
Right. Well, since you bring her up, let's talk about AOC as we're talking about perception of being moderate, versus being progressive or liberal. AOC sits in sort of the progressive driver's seat in opposition to Joe Biden, correct?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say that she's the opposition to Joe Biden, because I don't think she's really opposed him.
No. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't mean
but
in in
yeah,
contrast, let's say.
yeah, she is definitely the liberal leader of America. She is absolutely the most famous liberal politician in the country, and she's the most famous liberal politician in the country that we've had for a very long time. She is significantly more famous than Bernie Sanders was during the Obama presidency. Bernie Sanders really only became famous when he ran for president in 2015, but I don't
Right.
think anybody had really heard of him during the Obama presidency. The late Senator Paul Wellstone played that role for Bill Clinton. He was nowhere near where AOC was. AOC is somebody who's impersonated on Saturday Night Live, but she could actually host Saturday Night Live. Like she's actually equal to an A-list celebrity in her in that sort of celebrity capacity. I
Right.
mean, she's simply the biggest liberal star we've had in a very long time. I think you have to go back to Ted Kennedy when Jimmy Carter was president to find sort of a similar kind of person who is literally as famous as the president of the United States is. And
Right. And
she's on very much on the left. Uh,
did Kennedy play that same role in contrast to Carter, or were they both ideologically on the same page?
No, Kennedy was very much an enemy of Jimmy Carter's.
Mm.
There's a lot of discussion about that. In fact, Jimmy Carter, before I believe Ted Kennedy died, really went at him and complained about how the reason we don't have nationalized health care is because of Ted Kennedy. That Jimmy Carter had a single payer healthcare system ready, and it was Ted Kennedy who opposed it. And then Ted Kennedy ran against Jimmy Carter in 1980, refused to concede all the way to the convention, gave a really brilliant speech. I mean, one of the best speeches a Democratic politician has ever given at the 1980 convention in New York, who refused to endorse, basically refusing to endorse Carter, saying that we will keep fighting, we're going to keep fighting, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, he formally endorsed Carter, but it was a very begrudging endorsement.
Right.
It was very similar to sort of Bernie's endorsement of Hillary in 2016.
Right.
And
Very, very similar to the 2015,
yeah,
2016. Yeah.
yeah, and there was actually a very famous video of them all standing on the dais of Madison Square Garden, the stage, Carter and Mondale and Ted Kennedy refused to shake Jimmy Carter's hand while they were standing on that stage, or hug him or show any kind of unity. At that point, it was really very, very bad. And there was, I think, for Ted Kennedy, there was a constant feeling, and it's accurate. I think it's true that if it hadn't been for Chappaquiddick, he would have been the president, not Jimmy Carter, in 1976. And Chappaquiddick basically had taken that away from him. He tried in 1980 to make it happen. It didn't, thinking that enough time had passed, enough time had not passed. And I think that was kind of part of the drama of that. But,
Do we need to explain Chappaquiddick to our younger viewers, or do you think anyone watching this would have
I
the
would,
historical awareness?
well, there's actually a really great movie about Chappaquiddick. I think it's called Chappaquiddick, starring Jason Isaacs, I believe. I think that's the actor who plays Ted Kennedy. That describes it all in detail. Kate Mara, I believe, plays Mary Jo Kopechne in this
Oh,
movie. It's
interesting.
really good. It's a very good movie. It's actually, if anyone wants to know about Chappaquiddick, you can just watch that movie and you can pretty much get a good summary of what occurred at that point.
Right.
But yeah, this was basically what happened was is that Ted Kennedy and a young lady in a car who's not his wife were driving away from a party, and the car went over a bridge, and Ted Kennedy got out and got to shore, and the young lady drowned. And then he did not tell anybody about it. He did not report it to the police for several hours. I think the next day over. Later, he informed the police, and that's basically what the whole thing was.
Yeah.
There was a period,
Clearly,
yeah,
clearly Jimmy Carter's fault.
yeah. Well, there was a period in that race in 1980 when Kennedy was starting to close in on Carter, and won some big primaries, and Carter, was referring to his very positive handling of the Iranian hostage crisis, which later turned on him. But said, well, one thing voters should remember is I didn't panic in a crisis. And people were basically like, what are you talking about? What? Are you referring to? No, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying people should know I didn't panic in a crisis.
That's a,
And that was
that's
what
an
that was.
A-list shade.
That was very much that. Yes. That was very much exactly what that was about. And But yeah, that was a very famous and contentious campaign. Politics was much more contentious, to be real honest with you. It was much more contentious, a lot more dramatic, much bigger fights. Now, like any sort of straight comment you would make about Biden would be picked up and magnified by the media as if it was a very
Right,
big
right.
thing. But in those
And
days,
AOC, you're right. AOC doesn't have anywhere near that sort of contentious relationship with Biden. They work very
no,
well together.
no, and she's actually praised him quite a bit. And one of the things I'll say is that the conventional wisdom is that AOC hurts Biden, but I think she's been during the presidency absolutely great for Biden.
Yeah.
I think voters know that she's liberal and Biden is not. She has criticized him from the left, but she has also supported his plan. She's not held his legislation hostage. She hasn't said she wouldn't
Right.
support things. I think that by and large, she has been a net plus for Joe Biden. And I
Right.
think that's been a major factor in why people view Joe Biden as being moderate, is that they know what a liberal is right now, and that's AOC.
Right.
So,
Right. Do you think people on the left actually benefit by the perception that Joe Biden is moderate because it keeps the political center of the country from not panicking or being able to be scared off by his policies?
yeah, I think that that definitely does. I think that there's no question that one of the most interesting aspects I think about the AC Affordable Care Act and called Obamacare is how popular it was the minute Obama kind of went away. And I remember
Mhm.
there was an interview CNN did with this woman in Kentucky saying that she loved Obamacare. She really wishes it was called something else because she
Right.
couldn't.
I mean, it was popular while he was in office,
Yes,
as long as it was just called the ACA and not called
right,
Obamacare.
right. And just because it was called Obamacare, they felt they had to come at it and really go at it. One of the things that David Brooks talks about with the environment is he noticed that Republicans really moved against global warming and climate change when Al Gore did his Inconvenient Truth movie, because Republicans were so wired to oppose Al Gore, they just had to oppose anything he said.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
you know, and so the National Review used to do a blog of climate change denial called Planet Gore, where they would just print up all these like conspiracy theories about climate change denial. But their whole issue was that we have to oppose Al Gore, therefore we
Right.
must oppose climate change. So that's kind
Which
of
they're doing now with vaccine denial and
right.
with election accessibility.
Right. I mean, I noticed that there was a segment on Fox and Friends where one writer, I believe it was Ben Shapiro, was on saying, you should get vaccinated because it's your best way of saying thank you to Donald Trump. That Donald Trump got you these vaccines, so you should get vaccinated to say thank you to Donald Trump. I mean, it was kind of an absurd sort of way of arguing it.
I mean, if that gets shots in arms, more power
Yeah,
to him. But
basically that's exactly right. But I think that's more or
it
less
is
it.
ironic considering Trump, turned down additional purchases of vaccines about
Yeah,
midway through the.
and this would have been such a disaster if he was still president. I mean, we would never hear the end of it with a vaccine. Each vaccine like shot would be accompanied by a tweet talking about how great he was, and it would just be the worst. And he would play favorites. He certainly would have. I mean, there was some evidence that when he was still president, that he sent a lot of vaccine to his friends in Florida, and kind of left states like Colorado completely without vaccine.
Right,
Because
right. Yeah, they
right,
weren't. He didn't want to distribute by need, if I
right.
recall early on.
Yeah, and he was telling people sort of something that was very Doctor Evilish. Can we create a vaccine and not share it with the rest of the world? Like that was actually, which is very much like a Bond villain type of thinking.
Right.
But that's
Well,
exactly
that's the ultimate conservative isolationist thinking, right? The rest of the world won't affect us at all.
right. It's very. I don't even know what he would be doing with that. It's like he would then say, "Yeah, I'll give you the vaccine for $1 million or something like that." Like like
That that is the level of his nickel and dime evil. It's true.
it's exactly right. So that's about it.
Was there anything else you wanted to say about Joe Biden's? Do you think his perception as a moderate overall is actually helpful to him? Then,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. Most Americans view themselves as moderate, and the fact that they view him as moderate means that they is part of the reason they support him. You know, and I think another aspect of polling that you should point out is if you're a liberal and you like Joe Biden, you don't say he's a liberal. If you're a conservative and you like Joe Biden, you'll say he's conservative. If you're a moderate and you like Joe Biden, you'll say he's a moderate. You generally will ascribe your own beliefs to a politician you like. And I think that's also like a factor with his positive points.
That's true. That's a very good point. Right. We all project our strengths and weaknesses onto
Right.
our idols and heroes. It's true.
Yeah.
Anything else on this topic, or that you wanted to address?
No, I think we covered it.
Address? Yeah, yeah. How are you liking the Bad Batch?
I think it's excellent. I expected that this was going to be just a Star Wars retread of Dirty Dozen. It's been much different. I think it's interesting that the character of Omega has an Australian accent in the English language version. I thought that was really fascinating that they gave her an Australian accent. But I think it's been by and large really good. They clearly have. There's now clearly a formula where you have sort of a hardened warrior with like sort of a child who might be force sensitive or have some sort of powers, and you have to sort of guide them through the galaxy somehow. And it seems like they're going to follow this exact formula. But I didn't mind that. I thought it was a very good formula.
Yeah, we'll see how the A team in space works out.
Right, that's exactly what
going forward. All right, this has been another episode of The Tea with Che and Shai. The tea this week is just a simple peppermint tea for me. I don't know what you drink. Are you also having you're having the same satchel of green tea? Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good to see you. You looked good in the show.
Thanks. We'll talk next week, I guess.
Yeah, we'll talk next week. Have a good night, everyone. Bye.
Bye.